which is the widening participation and strengthening the European research area part, which really has two components. It's one work program with two components. The first one being widening participation and spreading excellence, which is in fact what we're going to be discussing today. And the second one is reforming and enhancing the European research and innovation system. But let us look very briefly at the novelties introduced by Horizon Europe with respect to the widening program. So it is in fact in full alignment with the new ERA strategic priorities. And what are these ERA strategic priorities? Well, we have quite a few of them, so I'm not going to dwell on them. Just to give you a few examples, we have an open labour market for researchers, we have gender equality, we have effective national research systems, optimal transnational cooperation and competition. So we try in our widening program to be aligned with all these strategic priorities indicated in the new era, let's say. There will also be a continuation of the core widening instruments, which for those of you who are not new to the widening program will probably know, like teaming, twinning and ERA chairs, with some improvements which have come from the feedback that we have received from our previous beneficiaries and from all those stakeholders involved in our cause. So for instance, we have had some feedback from the program committee members, from the NCPs. We have collected feedback also from the evaluators of our calls, and we have tried really to put together some lessons learned and to apply them in a new work program. So you will see, for those of you who already knew the previous actions, teaming, twinning and ERA chairs, that there are some slight changes. Then, big novelty, research costs for coordination and support actions are eligible under teaming, twinning and ERA chairs. This is something which was communicated to us repeatedly from our beneficiaries, that they wanted to have research costs eligible. But as you might know, in coordination and support actions, this is not allowed. So we have managed to have an exemption so as to have at least a small part of the budget which can be earmarked for research costs. Then there will be more emphasis on developing research management capacities. There will be a full integration of cost under widening. Cost was already existing in Horizon 2020 and before. But now let's say that a more important role is given to widening within this association. There will be a fixed list of eligible member states to host the main beneficiary. What does this mean? These are basically the widening countries. So in Horizon 2020, we had a so-called composite indicator for research excellence, by which we could determine what were the eligible member states, so what were the widening countries. Now, this composite indicator has changed in Horizon Europe, which means that the majority of the so-called widening countries in Horizon 2020 remain, but now we don't have Luxembourg anymore because it doesn't, let's say it is not considered to be behind with respect to the average of the EU member states in terms of research and innovation. But on the other hand, we have now Greece, which was not there in Horizon 2020. And in addition, we also have the eligibility of the EU outermost regions, which we did not have in the previous framework program. What are the outermost regions? We will be seeing them in a while, as I have a slide on them. And then we have the full implementation of the Advancing Europe package with quite a lot of additional support schemes to boost participation of those countries that are a little bit less performing with respect to research compared to the other EU countries. There will also be a more integrated policy approach, so we try to really help the construction of synergies with regional policy, with transnational missions. You will, I'm sure that Dominika will have talked to you about the missions, which are so important in Horizon Europe. And then, of course, very important for us is to align our actions with the regional smart specialization strategies. One point which I have not mentioned in this slide, but which is indeed worthy of mention and worthy of notice, is what I said right at the beginning of my speech. In other words, the increased budget. Because now widening will actually have 3.3% of the Horizon Europe budget as compared to the almost 1% of the Horizon 2020 budget, which was in itself lower with respect to Horizon Europe. So this is also a positive message. So as I was saying before, this is the list of the widening countries or regions. So we have a list of EU member states, which I'm not going to read out to you because you can see them, a list of associated countries, and a list of the outermost regions which can now qualify as widening countries under Horizon Europe. So moving on, as I was telling you, there is within our work program, there are two main components, and today, which are widening participation and spreading excellence and reforming and enhancing the European research and innovation system. And today we shall be focusing on the left side of the slide, so basically on all those actions which create the package for the widening participation and spreading excellence part. So we will be looking in a little bit more detail at each and every one of these actions, but just a couple of words about how the work program is structured. So the work program is indeed divided up into these two main components, and it is also split into three main so-called destinations. The first destination is improved access to excellence, and it includes all those actions which you can see just underneath. In other words, teaming, twinning, including a special call which was on Western Balkans, which was dedicated to Western Balkans. Why was this? Basically because from the previous framework program we saw that the participation of Western Balkans in Horizon Europe, but also in the widening program, was very, very low, much lower than the other widening countries. So we created an ad hoc scheme for it. Then we have excellence hubs under destination 1, which is indeed a new action. We have European excellence initiatives for higher education institutions, R&I policy making in Western Balkans, hopon facility, and as I was saying before, cost. Then we have destination 2, which is dedicated to attracting and mobilizing the best talents. And under destination 2, we have ERA chairs and fostering balanced brain circulation, which have both ERA fellowship actions, which I'm not going to be dealing with today because we don't follow them. They're actually in the hands of the colleagues that are dealing with Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And we also have ERA talents, which is actually an action that we have inherited very, very recently and which we are working on now because we already have a call that is coming up. But we will be looking at the calls later on. And lastly, we have destination 3, which we're not going to be dealing with today, as it is concerning the reform and enhancement of the EU research and innovation system. So moving on, I'm now going to provide a very brief explanation of what each and every one of these actions actually entails. So basically the policy objective in teaming is to develop the so-called lighthouses and role models to stimulate reforms of national research and innovation system to increase the level of excellence in these national research and innovation systems and also to mobilize new investments. So how do we do this? Basically, we fund either the creation of new centers of excellence or the update of already existing centers of excellence in the widening country. And this we do through a very large coordination and support action, which is funded up to 15 million euro. And we expect the same amount to be given from another funding source, which we call complementary funding. We will have a single application in a two-stage evaluation procedure. And already for the work program 21 to 22, we have done the evaluation of stage 1, and we are now in the process of evaluating stage 2. So unless you have participated already in the first phase, there is no possibility of participating in stage 2 for the 21 to 22 work program. However, there is the possibility of participating in the next call belonging to the next work program, 23-24. So here we see a joint evaluation of all the funding sources, and the consortium sees the main beneficiary being from a widening country, plus 1 or 2 strategic advanced partners that can be universities or research organizations coming from different countries. So here the idea is to create synergies with the cohesion policy funding. Why? Because we realized in the previous framework program that the majority of the complementary funding actually came from ERDF, from the European Regional Development Fund, and from the Cohesion Fund. So we are trying really to create synergies and to facilitate participation, although this is not always easy. So we're really trying to work more on the potential synergies with other programs. So moving on to twinning, you will have a presentation, I understand, from a coordinator on the twinning action, which I believe will be very, very interesting for you, because you will have really the first-hand concrete experience from people that are participating in one of these projects. So very briefly here, because then I am sure that the coordinator of the twinning project that is being presented will give you a lot of details. Basically, the policy objective is to strengthen a defined field of research in a university or research organization by linking it with at least 2 leading research institutions in another member state or associated country in a given domain. So here we fund coordination and support actions again of the duration of up to 3 years. Here the budget has changed slightly from Horizon 2020. So basically it's between 0.8 and 1.5 million euro, and the coordinator needs to be established in a widening country. I will not dwell onto the details because you will be seeing them later on, but basically just to give you an idea on the type of activities that we expect to see under twinning. So we have things like short-term staff exchanges, we have expert visits to be funded, we have short-term on-site virtual trainings or workshops or conference attendance, organization of joint summer schools, and of course dissemination and outreach activities. Now moving on to Excellence Hubs, and as I was saying, Excellence Hubs is a new action for us. So I must say it is very much of a novelty for us as well. We have just evaluated proposals from the first call of Excellence Hubs, and basically the idea is to foster innovation excellence in place-based innovation ecosystems. And here we work with the so-called quadruple helix concept, which you might have heard before, or maybe you might have heard of the triple helix, because this was very much en vogue and has been for quite some time. So the triple helix actually involves research or academia, business and governmental authorities working together. But here in Excellence Hubs, we have an additional component which is represented by society. So we want to see research, academia, business, local, regional, national authorities and society working together in order to improve science-business linkages, to give a regional dimension of widening through a bottom-up approach, meaning that we can have projects coming from all fields of research. So here we have again coordination and support actions that are going to be funded, and the consortium structure should see a group of 2 or 3 place-based innovation ecosystems on this quadruple helix approach, which I was explaining. which should also allow innovation ecosystems in widening countries and beyond to team up and to create good linkages between all these different actors. Yes, so of course Excellence Hubs are part of the European Excellence Initiative, and again here we try to see potential synergies with the cohesion policy funding. And not only. So just to move on to another action, this is also relatively new to us, which is the networks of higher education institutions. And this is basically geared at capacity building. We had a pilot action in Horizon 2020, which was pretty successful. We funded 41 European universities in pilot alliances. And these, I would like to point out that these 41 European university alliances can actually participate in this new calls, but they're not allowed to have funding because they've already received it. So this is really to avoid double funding. So what are the target groups? So as I said, for networks of higher education institutions or institutes and associated partner organizations and businesses that should have a balanced geographic coverage. So the bulk of the support in this action is provided to universities, to higher education institutions, academies of science, public organizations, etc., provided they're located in widening countries. So again, here the idea is to build integrated networks and really to get ready for future European universities initiatives. And the idea really is to support institutional transformation through cooperation. Then we move on to the hopon facility. Again, this is new to you, new to us. And the idea here is to allow widening countries to effectively hop on to already existing consortia, already existing projects in a given domain, in a context in which that consortium does not already have a widening country on board. So basically it is legal entities from low research and innovation performing member states that join already ongoing projects, already selected collaborative research and innovation actions. But this is obviously subject to the approval and agreement of the respective consortium. So the new entity needs to prove the added value that it brings to the already existing consortium. So there will be some funding available for the new partner, for the new participant, and a small part of the funding available for the coordinator because they will have increased management costs, let's say. The main selection criteria here are excellence, of course, and as I was saying before, the added value of the new partner that will be performing a relevant additional task in the project. So here, what is the policy objective of the hopon facility? It's basically to mobilize excellence in widening countries, to increase the visibility of participants from widening countries, to increase knowledge circulation, and also to increase participation in other thematic domains. Then we can move on to the next, which is cost. I will not dwell on it. We have already evaluated the cost action, but I think what is important to point out here is that cost in Horizon Europe is giving a lot more space to widening countries, and the expected impact is an increased participation of the widening countries in European research activities and higher success rates for them. So here we are talking about cooperation, we're talking about networking, and we're talking about brain circulation in line with the ERA principles. Then we move on to destination 2, which sees ERA chairs. Now, ERA chairs, again, you will be provided with a nice presentation from a coordinator of this action that will be providing you with concrete and hands-on experience. ERA chairs is one of the actions that was already present in Horizon 2020 and that has been working pretty well. But we have decided to let's say fine-tune it in Horizon Europe, following the input that we received from our beneficiaries. So you will see that in Horizon Europe, ERA chairs has a slightly different structure with respect to beforehand. So you have the opportunity of already selecting the ERA chair holder at proposal stage. And this is very helpful because what we noticed in our actions in the past was that a lot, but really a long time elapsed in the recruitment process of the ERA chair holder and of the team selected by the ERA chair holder. So a lot of time of the project duration was spent and, in inverted commas, wasted in setting up the whole thing. Whereas now, if you already have the possibility of choosing your ERA chair holder and maybe even constructing the proposal together beforehand, it can really facilitate the lifespan of the project. So basically the activities that will actually be carried out by the project itself. So basically the idea is to have a CSA, again, of the duration of up to 5 years with a funding of 2.5 million euro. The coordinating entity needs to be established in a widening country. And basically it entails the hosting of an ERA chair holder and his or her team to create a solid research group in a chosen scientific field. And this research group needs to be under the authority of the ERA chair holder, with open recruitment procedures. Of course, they need to be transparent and clean, let's say. And another element which I need to point out as a difference from the previous program is that research consumables and small equipment costs actually become eligible. They were not eligible in the past, but now they will be. And this is, I think, a good move forward. So you have up to 10% of the grant that can actually go to research consumables and small equipment. Yeah, so basically I think I have said the most important things related to the ERA chair's actions, and I will also leave the floor afterwards to the colleagues, to the coordinators of the two actions, twinning and ERA chairs, because I think it will be good to see how they have been carrying out their work within this action. So we move on to fostering a balanced brain circulation, which, as I was saying before, entails two main actions, namely ERA fellowships and ERA talents. And here the policy objective is actually to attract more research and innovation talents to widening countries and to nurture talents. So what are the target groups? The target groups are researchers, research facilitators, innovators. It can actually be really diverse audiences, as mentioned here in my slide, and they can be moving or returning to host organizations in a widening countries and host organizations located in widening countries. So just a couple of words on the ERA talents. As I was telling you just a couple of minutes ago, we are now opening a call. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, it is opening today. It is the first call for us, so it's quite a novelty. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position to give you any concrete experience because it is new to us as well. But one thing I would like to mention, if you look in the work program, ERA Talents seems very similar to the RISE action, which is funded by the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. And a question which we very often get is, isn't this more or less the same? Well, yes, the action is indeed very similar. It is similar because it is indeed moving researchers, funding the mobility of researchers. But let's say that the characteristic, the peculiarity of ERA talents as opposed to RISE is that it is across sectors and that it is actually focusing on widening countries. So moving on, because I might be stealing too much of your time, we also have an NCP action which is being funded. It has already been evaluated and funded. So we have earmarked €8 million for this proposal, which is actually coordinated by Katarzyna, I'm sorry, I may not have pronounced it properly, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the surname, but I'm sure you know her because she's very, very active in Poland, and she's actually coordinating the NCP Wide EraNet project, which is basically putting together all the widening and the ERA NCPs in order to reduce the disparities in the research performance of the various countries, of the various widening countries, and to facilitate transnational cooperation between NCPs. So the idea here is really to bridge that gap, which is indeed existing, and to help the less experienced entities from the widening countries and regions to acquire knowledge, know-how, to provide better services to their applicants, taking into account the different actors in both the widening component of the work program and the ERA parts. So this is indeed a coordination and support action which was earmarked for named beneficiaries and which can include financial support to third parties. It is in fact the continuation of the already existing NCP Wide Net, already existing in Horizon 2020, and which was in fact very, very successful. They have been carrying out a lot of work, and I'm sure some of you are aware of the work that has been carried out within NCP Wide Net. But of course, within Horizon Europe, there is more budget for it, and so the idea is to significantly upscale it. Yeah, so I don't want to dwell further on it. So there will be different work packages within the project, each one dedicated to different aspects of, let's say, of actions which can bridge the gap between the widening countries, and it's a very useful project which is already ongoing. Then we have another very new action, which is called Pathway to Synergies. Again, I'm not in a position to tell you very much about it because it is new to us as well, so we haven't got experience on it from past programs. But the policy objective here is to provide support for additional efforts that could be required to set up interfaces between two different funding systems where there might be some major barriers. And these barriers may be due to different elements, such as, for instance, the mismatches of regional versus European approaches, consortium versus single beneficiary funding, or maybe horizon thematic priorities versus the thematic priorities of the nation, of the region, and of course the smart specialization. So here again we have we are funding a coordination and support action of up to 5 years with an indicative budget of 0.5 to 1.2 million euro and established in a widening country. So here as it says in the slide, the pilot call actually offers opportunities to incentivize concrete realization of promising sequential synergies. And we have two different pathways, and they are considered either upstream or downstream. So in the upstream synergy mode, it is basically at least 3 different private or public entities, research entities, I would say, established in at least 2 different widening countries, and that were beneficiaries from ERDF or RRF, etc. And then we have the downstream synergy mode, where basically it's a little bit different because the members of the consortium need to be members that have completed ongoing projects. They need to be in the same domain. And so basically you can choose whether to participate in the upstream synergy mode, which funds specific actions, or the downstream synergy mode, which basically takes the project at a later stage and funds different actions. So this is the pathway to synergies. And then we have one project that is going to be supported, which is called Dissemination and Exploitation Support Facility. We have added, well, not we, but I would say our colleagues in DG Research and Innovation have added this action to the work program. One, because effectively it was lacking. It was really not there and it was needed. And also following the European Court of Auditors audit that took place and that finished a few months back on the widening actions, we were recommended to design some actions to improve knowledge diffusion and to have some technology uptake to increase spillover effects, so that researchers and of course their institutions could build and valorize the latest available knowledge. And it was found that especially in widening countries, research and innovation actors don't have sufficient support and info, and nor the skills and competences or the connections to the right stakeholders. And of course this could create some gaps, which can have a negative effect on the ability to maximize their potential value of the results obtained in their projects. So this dissemination and exploitation support facility, it has actually been introduced for this reason. So here we have again a coordination and support action ranging from 1 to 5 million euro that will be awarded to one or more consortia that should have at least 3 legal entities that have a proven track record of success in dissemination and exploitation in related training, communication, and networking activities. So what is it that is going to be funded? So the consortium needs to establish a package, a service package, let's say, which entails training, coaching, mapping of results, expert and study visits, peer support, matchmaking events, innovation and IP management, knowledge transfer, and activities of this type, both in an individualized manner and through collective workshops. So I have finished presenting the various actions that are present in the widening work program, and here I have prepared for you a slide which summarizes the closed calls. So not interesting in the sense that you cannot apply to them anymore, interesting in the sense that it shows you the various success rates and how the response has been on behalf of our participants to the different calls that we had in Horizon Europe in the 21 and 22 work program. So I'm not going to read them out because you have them right in front of you, and as I was speaking you had the opportunity of taking a look at them. And then I have the next one, which is again the running calls and the upcoming ones. And I would like to take your attention to the last two ones. Why? Because they are the ones that are still open. So we have the hopon facility, and as I was telling you earlier on, the ERA Talents call that is opening today. So with respect to these two last calls, the hopon was opened on the 27th of January, and we have already had one cutoff date because we had two cutoff dates available. So one is already gone, but we still have another one within the Horizon 21, the 21 to 22 work program, which you could participate in, and the deadline is on the 10th of November. Of course, a number of proposals submitted, big question mark. We can have some expectations, but I have left the question marks because we do not know as yet. And for the ERA talents, likewise, the call is opening today and it will close mid-November. And again, we are guessing how many submitted eligible or admissible proposals we will have. So this is, I mean, of course, don't focus on the numbers that follow the green dates, because these are all projections. We don't know. But this is just to point your attention to the fact that you still have these 2 calls available from the 21 to 22 work program. And then moving on, and I cannot move on, I don't know why. Here we go. These are in fact the running and upcoming calls, and you can see here that we have the calls from the 23 to 24 work program. Now, again, as I said at the beginning of my speech, don't take this as final. I am showing them to you because they are being discussed now, and they have been half approved. But the final version of the 23 to 24 work program will be published in December. So you will have the final date, which will probably be the same, but you might have some that may vary by a few days. So this is just, take it as an indicative set of dates. Okay. So I will not read them all out to you because you have them in front of you, and I think I can also leave you my slides. And so here you have basically the teaming stage 1, the European Excellence Initiative, the hopon facility, twinning, the synergy action, and the dissemination and exploitation support facility. And here you have the continuation. As I said before, in teaming we have stage 1 and stage 2 now. So these are the dates for stage 2, which end up in 2024. And then we have Excellence Hubs, ERHF, COST, again, ERA Talents, and again, hopon facility. So I think I have used up enough of your time. So I will leave you with these slides, and I thank you all for your attention. And if you have any questions, I am here to answer. Unfortunately, I cannot answer in Polish, but I'll do my best to be clear in English.
Thank you, Federica. Thank you very much for such an exhaustive and informative presentation. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anyone has a question right now, you can raise your hand and ask the question personally. Could you please confirm, because we are one of these European universities, so we can participate in upcoming calls, right? But
Yeah.
without funding.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Even if it's a different topic, different domain, it won't.
Yes, I have to tell you that there are discussions ongoing with respect to this, because we've had also questions from the program committee members, because they felt that, as you are just rightly saying now, if they are participating in different topics and different domains, it's not really the same thing. So there are discussions ongoing, but so far the rule was that they can participate, but without funding.
Okay,